my next question for you is like, we often hear that local fishers are blamed for marine degradation, but you've pointed out that the root causes lie elsewhere in market pressures, policy gaps, and more. So, could you break that down? Why is it important to focus on the drivers of unsustainability rather than just the visible effects?
Hmm. It's like how you say there's no point treating symptoms, you need to treat the root cause, right? It's exactly the same. What you see is the symptom, right? What you can perceive as a fever in a person's body is a symptom of something, right? Fever
Yeah.
by itself is not what you want to treat. And quite often, the core of what ails you may not be from that particular area, right? It could have emerged somewhere entirely differently. Like again, going back to the Andamans where I work, um, there's a huge fishery called the grouper fishery. It's for a particular species of fish called the coral trout.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why people harvest it is because not because people locally want to consume it, because it has a huge market in Southeast Asia, especially in China. So during Chinese New Year, what our work shows
Yeah.
is that their capture rates really skyrocket, their prices skyrocket. And these are species that are very critical for reef health. Groupers are like the jackals or the wild dogs of the forest, right? They're the intermediary predators. So removing systematically targeting and removing all the meso predators of a reef system can have huge cascading effects.
Yeah.
It affects it's what you call a trophic cascade. And they don't catch coral trout that's big. They catch coral trout that's just plate sized, because if they're big,
Got it.
then again the market value goes down, because you no point catching a 5 kilo large coral trout. It doesn't really make sense. But as long as it sits neatly on your plate, that's the size of fish that everyone
Understood.
wants.
Yeah.
And interestingly, for groupers, they have what you call hermaphroditism. So they all begin as females when they're small. It's sequential hermaphroditism. So as they grow big is when they become males.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so all the fish that you see of coral groupers on reef systems, coral trouts, are all actually the smaller ones are all females or indeterminate without a sex. So the ones that are big are not targeted so much, but what you're targeting are these plate-sized ones, which is basically systematically removing females from the reef system issues. So what happens in the Southeast Asian market has an impact on reef systems in the Andamans, right? So, that's the way the world is interconnected now, and just trying to solve the problem here at the Andaman reef level isn't really going to solve the problem, right?
That's quite interesting. But what about for young people today? Someone, especially people who care about the environment but do not come from a science background. What kind of skills do you think are necessary in the conservation space?
Well, I don't think you need a science background to work in conservation. Anyone can work in the field of conservation. It's everything, right? Like I said, you need people who also understand markets to come and work with conservationists. You need economists to come and work on in conservation related issues, law, policy, governance. Like we talked already a lot about these different disciplines, and it's really important. And everyone has a space of something to contribute to the field of conservation. It doesn't it's actually not a good thing to assume that you need a science background to come and contribute into the space. It's not the case. To convert knowledge into action requires a lot of different actors to come and work together. Just to give an example, AI, robotics, technology, communication, internet, all of that is playing a huge role in cleaning up oceans, for instance, right? Robotics is a huge, that changed the way how ocean cleanup can work, not just on the coast, now out in the sea. We can use drones and other things that made wildlife surveillance so much more easier.
I think that's quite wonderful. I think that's the biggest myth revolving around ocean conservation. Is that whether you're in robotics or you're in AI or an engineer or a doctor, you don't need a specific skill set just to get into conservation. You just need to have passion due to the overlap of different careers.
So if you're passionate about both, then just think of ways to bring it together. And there's always ways to bring all of these together. Like I said, conservation is wide enough to accommodate anyone with any interest group into it, right? So
Definitely.
you don't have to compromise one to get into this, is what I meant.
Okay. And if someone listening, like a young child, 14, 15, 16, 17-year old, wants to go beyond beach cleanups or one-time college projects, how can they start creating real impact, even in their everyday lives?
That if you're passionate about the oceans and coasts, now the way the world is looking at the oceans is changing in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
And for many youngsters, it's going to open up a lot more opportunities. Like from what I hear, sitting in large meetings and conferences, globally there's an interest in investing in the ocean, which also means there's a huge opportunity to not do the mistakes that we did on land. Do it in a much better, sensible way. And even if you're interested in something else, you don't have to be an ecologist or someone who studies ocean systems to work on it, right? You can bring in your discipline always as a space to contribute. So
Absolutely.
just figure out where those intersections are, and then you're good to go.
So to wrap it up, it's time for a segment that I call Truth Tide. So it's where we wade through ocean myths and separate fact from fiction. So as a scuba diver myself, I've heard all kinds of stories onshore and underwater. So I'll throw out a few common ocean myths, and you tell us if it's true, false, or somewhere in between. So the first one is, if coral reefs die, marine life will adapt just fine.
Not all marine life. Coral reef systems in particular have really, evolved a huge diversity of relationships. So, you know, a great example is your anemone fish and
Mm-hmm.
Nemo,
Yeah.
right? If you've seen Nemo, that's an example of a relationship. So you can't take the clownfish out or the sea anemone out and then expect the clownfish to survive, right? So while it may not affect all marine life, it will definitely affect a huge diversity of marine organisms that are
So would you say if coral reefs die, marine life will adapt just fine? Truth, false, or
false.
somewhere in between?
Not all marine life will die, but reef organisms will definitely face a huge threat.
Understand. The next truth tide question is, the deeper you go, the more dangerous the ocean becomes.
Depending on what you mean by danger, so I won't say that it's not dangerous from too many of these weird-looking alienish creatures coming
Yeah.
and attacking, but as humans, going deep means every 10 meters is adding one more atmospheric pressure. So, and it's cold. So usually 3 to
Wow.
3 to 4 degrees centigrade is what the temperature is at the ocean floor. So, and some places where you have hydrothermal vents and whatnot, it's much higher. So it's dangerous, but not because of other critters like what people are made to believe. You have all these
Yeah.
weird alien creatures who come and eat you up, but that's not the case. But yes, the ocean places its own limits on us, which is a reason why we can't access oceans that easily, like we can access space and other places.
So that's a huge myth busted. There aren't any huge sharks or huge creatures that can eat you alive once you go under the ocean, but it's a variety of other factors which affect humans. The next question is that plastic pollution is the single biggest threat to our ocean.
Uh, Not exactly. There are so many other things that are problematic, like climate related disturbances are causing way bigger disruptions than plastics now are becoming hugely a problem to deal with as well. I don't think that's the biggest problem. The biggest problem slowing down of ocean currents, um, you know, changing temperature regimes and all of that
Yeah.
is really disrupting the oceans at much bigger scales.
That's quite interesting. And my next question is very related to what we spoke about before. You need a marine biology degree to make a difference for the ocean.
No, we discussed that in detail. That's a myth. Anyone can contribute.
Yeah. So, to all our listeners, if there's a myth or assumption you'd like busted in a future episode, drop it in the comments below and we might just feature you next. So, Dr. Naveen, thank you so much for this thoughtful and eye opening conversation. I've spent the last 5 years exploring the ocean through scuba diving, and now through this podcast, now a wonderful conversation. I'm trying to bring these underwater stories to the surface, and your work at Dakshin Foundation shows us that conservation isn't just about top down control, it's about trust, collaboration, and listening to people who live closest and are most impacted by the sea. So before we close, I'd like to end every Blue Bloom episode asking this signature question. Dr. Naveen, if the ocean had a voice, what do you think it would ask of us?
Don't be greedy. I definitely can provide for your needs, but I can't provide for your greeds, right? So ocean has always been seen as something that provides, and it does continue doing that. But I think we really need to be smart about not, not killing the goose that lays the golden egg, right? So I would say what ocean might say is, or would want to tell humans is that if you take care of me, I can take care of you.
Yeah, I think that's such a wonderful sentence.
Can provide for your needs, but not for your greed.
Yeah,
So,
I think that's a very powerful
yeah.
sentence. And I think that's a beautiful way to end the podcast. The ocean can provide for our needs, but not our creeds. So, to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. I hope this episode sparked something in you, a question, or shift, or a sense of urgency. This was your host, Tishya Kumar, TK, and this was Blue Bloom, our first episode, a podcast where the ocean finds its voice. And this was just the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Tisha. Thank you for having me
Thank
on the
you.
program. Yeah, and good luck with all your future episodes.
Thank you.